Hello to all the 11 plus children. This new set of videos is called Keeping Skills Sharp. They will be referred to as KSS. Each few weeks I will be giving you a new Keeping Skills Sharp sheet, and they will be a different colour. The first one's yellow, and each one will have about 8 different questions on, each of the questions focusing on a skill that you've learnt during the year since October, but you may find that your skills have become a bit rusty because we haven't been using them recently. Now we've completed all of our maths learning, it's time to revisit all of these areas so they're very much fresh in your mind for when you come across them during the proper 11 plus practice and real tests. So we'll move on. Hopefully we will have completed going through this sheet by the time you see this video. Okay, first of all, one important skill that people quite often fall down on is changing a fraction to a percentage. Quite often in an 11 plus question you'll be given a shape like this, where it's given as a certain amount of it shaded in, and you're asked to change it from a fraction into a percentage, or it might just say what percentage of this is shaded in. The way to start is to give it as a fraction first of all. So for this example we've got 30 pieces in our shape, so our denominator will be 30 and the number shaded in is 12. So now we need to turn this to a percentage, which means eventually we've got to come up with a fraction with 100 on the bottom. So you cannot skip straight from 30 to 100 by multiplying, well not with ease anyway. So we're going to find a halfway point where we can maybe simplify this fraction to give us a fraction along the way that has a denominator that we can then convert into 100. So the way to simplify this one is to divide by 3. So if we divide the top and the bottom by 3, that will give us 4 over 10. You should always try and make this number here a number which is a factor of 100, because then you can easily convert it into 100 by multiplying. So here goes. So we've got 4/10. To turn that into 100, then we need to multiply the top and the bottom by 10, which will give us 40 100ths. Once we've done that, that top number actually is your percentage, 40%. So think, first of all, simplify. Then multiply till you've got a fraction over 100, and then circle the top number, there's your percentage. Quite an easy method once you learn it quite formally and you practice it over and over again. Okay, next let's go on to function machines. This was question 2. I start with a number, I double it, subtract 2, halve it, then subtract 20. The answer is 15. What number did I start with? Well, the first thing I would suggest to you is actually write down the journey that has gone on during this question. So I start with a mystery number. Let's put a question mark. The first thing it says I have to do is double it, so that means times 2. The next thing it says I have to do is subtract 2, so I'm going to put take away 2 in my next box. The next thing says halve it, which is the same as dividing by 2. Can't do dots on this, it's never easy. There you go, divide by 2. And then the last thing I had to do was subtract 20. And I am told that my answer is 15. So if I just scoot to another colour, here we go. We're going to work this process backwards to the beginning to find out what this mystery number was. So let's start with 15 at the end. That's not very clear. Let's make that a little bit clearer. There you go. So we have to do the inverse. So instead of taking 20, we will add 20, and that will give us an intermediate number of 35. Then, instead of dividing by 2, we're going to times by 2, which will give us an intermediate number of 70. Then, instead of taking by 2, we're going to add 2. Can you see each time we're doing the opposite? So that will give us 72. And then, instead of timesing by 2, we're going to divide by 2. And 72 divided by 2 will give us 36. So that was our starting number. If you're worried you might not have it right, then what you can do is substitute that number back into the starting box. Let me change number again. I'll go to yellow. Okay. So if we put 36 in here, 36 times 2 would be 72. Take away 2 would be 70. Divide by 2 would be 35. Take away 20 would be 15, which is the answer we've got. So we know that this number is correct. If you try and do this process in your head, it will normally end up with you making a mistake. So follow the process along that's written in the question, and then work it backwards with the inverses. Question 3 we're not going to do because I think you can work that one out for yourself. Question 4 is looking at tricky mean questions, the stinky rat bags that we covered a while back where you had to try and work out what a missing value was. So here we go. 5 scores in a test, 1 is unknown, but we're told that the mean is 10. So what's the missing score? Well, the first thing you need to do is work out the total. And if you remember, the way that we used to work out the mean was the total divided by the number of values. So we know that the mean is 10, and we know that there are 5 values. So the total must be that mean times by the number of values. Remember to include the missing one that we don't know. So we know that the total of all of these values is 50, but that is not the answer to the question. What we need to know now is the total of the known values. So we need to add together all of the values that are here. So 6 and 12, 7 and 19. If we add those together, you can do a sum for that. You will get 44. So if 44 of the value of 50 has been used up by these 4 numbers, we just have to do a take away sum to give us 6 as the value that fits in there. So that is our answer. Moving on to number 5. This is quite an easy question when you visualise it. We're asked about temperature ranges. We're given a maximum, we're given a minimum. So to find the range, the best thing to do to visualise it is to draw yourself a really simple thermometer, literally a line with a 0 in the middle. Put your maximum score in, a 34, which is positive, would go there. Your minus 27 would go down below. And then think about this distance here. That's what you've got to work out. So to go from 34 to 0, you have a gap of, or a range of, 34 degrees. To go from 0 to minus 27, you have a range of 27 degrees. So all you need to do is add those two together, 34, 27, add them together will give you 61 degrees. See, that is your answer. Moving on to number 6, we've got finding halfway, a skill that we learned quite a while back, courtesy of Henry, and his method is still going strong. So let's pick a different colour for a change. Let's go for a bit of green. So finding halfway between 2 values, you can do it on a number line like my old method, but boy oh boy, it's tedious. The best thing to do is literally to add the 2 numbers together, like this. 5 and 7 is 12, 7 and 6 and 1 would give you 14, and that gives you 242 altogether. And then all you have to do is take that 242 and you need to halve it by dividing by 2. 2's into 2 goes 1, 2's into 4 goes 2, 2's into 2 goes 1. Moving on to question 7. Ooh, this yucky one. Decimal values on a line. Whenever you are given a value that you have to find and it's on a line where you already have decimals on there, the best thing to do is first of all put in placeholders after each of the numbers that you're already given. That will make it a little bit easier to work out. Now, in this example, you have to consider how many spaces there are between each of the key values that you've been given. Now, in this case, we know that it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. So if there are 5 spaces, each one must be worth roughly 2. So here we've got 1.32, 1.34, 1.36, 1.38 and of course 1.40, which is already there. Now the problem is here we're asked for the value which is here before 1.30, so now all we have to do is count backwards. So that would be 1.28 and the answer would be 1.26. Use your common sense head. Is 1.26 less than 1.30? Yes it is. Last question, a little bit of rounding. Oh boy, this was a bit rusty in our minds the other day when we did it. Okay, when you're given a rounding question, you have to consider what you are asked to be rounded, what you are being asked to round to. Here we've got 2 decimal places. So basically in our answer we have to have something, point, something, something. So in order to be able to do that, what you do is you underline that second decimal place. If it said 3 decimal places, you underline the third. If it said 4 decimal places, you underline the fourth. So that is the number that we are going to have to consider very carefully. The next number we call the decider. and this is the one that helps you to make your mind up. This one on the end, don't need that one at all, so we can even cross it off. So let's look at our decider. The rule for the decider is 5 or above, round up. Less than 5, round down. Now this one we're clearly going to round up, so our answer would be 2.88. So that's most of the questions, barring number 3 from Keeping Skills Sharp 1. What you will find now is for the next 3 or 4 weeks in lesson I will give you a piece of homework that is based on exactly these skills, these 8 skills. You take it home, use the video to help you. Every single question will be a parallel one to the ones that are on the yellow sheet. In a few weeks' time, we'll switch to Keeping Skills Sharp. I won't tell you what colour it's going to be because I haven't bought the paper yet, so that'll be a bit of a mystery.